Thank you all for being here today for CleanTech OC's second annual conference and expo. It's kind of crazy to think that this is only our second event. We've been in existence for about a year and a half now, and if you're not aware of who we are, we're the trade association for clean tech companies and those interested in the industry here in Orange County. And we were created by a partnership of folks from the public and private sectors and academia, and I think this conference really speaks to the strength of our partners and the interest in growing, and we have companies in renewable energy generation, resource efficiency, green building and green chemistry, and alternative fuel vehicles. And we have today a lot of those companies here, and we're very honored to have them join us, and you as well. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank our founding sponsors who serve on our board of directors, and includes the cities of Anaheim, Santa Ana, Huntington Beach, and Irvine, County Supervisor Bill Campbell, Brandman University, Bryan Cave, Environ, KPMG, Roth Capital Partners, Sale Capital Partners, Squire Milner, and U.S. Bank. And we also have on the board the Eberly Company, Octane, UC Irvine, and we're very honored to have them, as well as Disneyland Resort. I also want to take a moment to thank our volunteers as well. Carly Paisley, Alyssa Lorenz, Brian Buckley, Paul Gallagher, Sarah Nilsson, and Cheryl Fukumoto. And I don't know if I introduced myself yet, but my name's Taylor Honrath. I'm the Director and Chief Operating Officer at CleanTech OC, and it's a distinct honor to have all of you here today. And thank you for being here. You didn't come to hear me speak, so I want to introduce our chairman, Greg Trimarche. He's also a co-founder of CleanTech OC and a stakeholder at Greenberg Traurig here in Irvine. And thank you again for being here.
Well, good morning, everyone, and again, thanks for being here. As Taylor said, this is the second annual conference of CleanTech OC, and we're just delighted to have you all here today, and I hope you enjoy the program as much as we're going to enjoy giving it to you. So there's an old Confucian curse, may you live in interesting times, and I certainly think about that a lot with some of the things that are going on these days. We just spent the day yesterday commemorating one of the greatest tragedies ever to befall this nation. And 3 days earlier, our president went on national television to announce his plan for another stimulus program, this time $400 billion, to try to pull us out of the worst downturn that this nation has faced since the Great Depression. I found it very interesting that on the very same day that the president announced that plan, we had a power outage that left 6 million people here in the southwestern United States without power. And what I'm told is that it was the result of a SDG&E employee removing a piece of monitoring equipment at a substation in somewhere in Arizona, to which I can only say that our grid apparently isn't very smart yet. Also, on the very same day that Obama gave his speech and we lost power, the FBI raided the headquarters of Solyndra in Fremont, California. For those of you who aren't familiar with Solyndra, they were one of the real high flyers of the clean tech industry here in California, and in fact, the Obama administration guaranteed a $500 million loan to Solyndra, and of course, they promptly went into bankruptcy, laid off 1,100 workers, and they are now suffering that fate as we, the taxpayers, are as well. And as I said a moment ago, the FBI raided their headquarters last week, and we don't know yet what they were looking for. So where does this all leave us? Well, as I said a moment ago, one observation with the power outage is that our grid is not very smart yet. Another personal observation is that government clearly is not the answer to all of the problems, and as many have said in criticizing the stimulus program, maybe the government isn't all that good at picking winners and losers. And I think any critic of the administration and the stimulus program is going to be pointing loudly and often to Solyndra as an example of that. And it's a shame because, look, as we all know, it's impossible to truly pick winners and losers with any certainty. I mean, that's why folks get paid a lot of money in the venture capital business to make those decisions. It's a hard thing to do. So I think some of the criticism that's going to be heaped on the Obama administration for this Solyndra debacle is a bit unfair. But I think what it does do is it gives us the chance to ask the question, if government is going to support the clean tech industry, and I think probably everybody in this room hope that it's going to continue supporting the industry, what is the best way to do that? You know, is the loan guarantee program and our grants really the right way to do it? Are there other ways to do it? For example, what if the U.S. government simply announced tomorrow that it was going to become the world's biggest consumer of renewable energy? And it said, we are going to start converting our military and civilian fleets to biofuel tomorrow, and we are going to start putting out RFPs and allowing biofuel companies to bid on these contracts and to have a reliable consumer of biofuel for as far into the future as we could see. What effect would that have on the biofuel industry? What if the U.S. government said, we are going to start outfitting every significant federal building in the country with solar panels or with wind turbines or whatever? What effect would that have? And by the way, I haven't thought this all through yet, so I'm not suggesting that that's the solution. What I'm suggesting is that there are a whole host of potential solutions to the problems that we face both as a nation and as a clean tech industry, and hopefully one of the things that we'll do today is start exploring some of those potential solutions that maybe haven't gotten enough time or attention yet. So there are some big picture observations. Now let me try to focus a little bit more on Southern California in general, Orange County in particular, and most specifically the clean tech industry in Orange County. So as probably many of you in this room know, but unfortunately many folks outside Orange County don't know, Orange County really is at the front line of the clean tech revolution. We have some of the most significant clean tech companies in the world right here in Orange County. Just to throw out a handful of statistics, as many of you know, green jobs have grown at something like 10 times the statewide average since 2005. Despite a worldwide recession, global clean energy investments reached $162 billion in 2009 and over $200 billion in 2010. In 2010, 75% of domestic investment in the U.S. clean tech industry went to companies in California. California got 3 out of every $4 of private money invested in clean tech in 2010. And as many of you know, clean tech is now the #1 sector for private capital investment in Orange County. We passed medical instruments last year. Orange County has almost 300 clean tech companies. There's a total of almost 1,000 clean tech companies in Southern California. Here in Orange County, UC Irvine, Chapman University, Brandman University are world leaders in renewable energy and clean technology research and innovation. As I said a moment ago, some of the most significant clean tech companies and clean tech investment firms are right here in Orange County. Fisker Automotive, Quantum Technologies, Amonix, Flex Energy, Roth Capital, and Sale Capital Partners, just to name a few, and I'm sure I've left out some important ones. The good news is that you're going to get a chance to meet almost all of them today. Also here in Orange County, last month saw the opening of a groundbreaking hydrogen fueling station at the Orange County Sanitation District wastewater treatment facility in Fountain Valley. A number of folks in the room, including myself, were honored to attend that event. The first of its kind, the system purifies gas from the wastewater holding tanks and feeds that purified gas into a stationary fuel cell to produce heat and electricity, as well as purified hydrogen that serves the fueling station for hydrogen-powered automobiles. 250 kilowatts a day and enough hydrogen to fuel 25 to 50 fuel cell vehicles per day, right here in Orange County, the first of its kind. But as you all know, the clean tech industry here and elsewhere faces some very significant hurdles, and probably the biggest continues to be financial. There just isn't enough money to get the industry really up and running the way we need to. And unfortunately, the federal grant money is running out just at the same time as private investors are starting to pull back from investing in early stage research and development. And that's a major problem, and we'll come back to that in a moment and throughout the day. There's a serious problem in raising project finance money to build renewable energy plants. And of course, one of the big problems in California is that it's so unpredictable as to whether you're ever going to actually get your permits to build and operate your plants. Who wants to invest in a project that's got maybe no better than a 50-50 chance of actually getting permitted and built? Obviously, we continue to have major political hurdles, continued skepticism as to the need for and viability of the renewable energy and clean tech industries, and perhaps even more problematic, unpredictable government policy. Of course, we continue to have to overcome technical hurdles, continuing challenges on issues such as battery technology, energy storage that plague the solar and wind power industries, and keep those industries from becoming more cost-effective and competitive. And competitive hurdles, of course. The traditional problems that hinder all businesses in California, high labor costs, taxes, regulatory burdens, place California manufacturers at a serious competitive disadvantage, not only with other states, but needless to say, internationally. Manufacturing now takes place in China. It doesn't take place in California, to wit, the cylinder debacle. Just another example of the type of political hurdles we face here in California. There was a weatherization program that was supposed to generate a lot of jobs and create a lot of energy efficiencies. Unfortunately, in California, the weatherization program was delayed for 7 months while the U.S. Department of Labor tried to determine prevailing wage standards for the industry. And by the time they finally got that done and imposed those standards, the inflated costs were too expensive for homeowners, and the homeowners just weren't interested in the program. I probably don't have to tell you that California's jobless rate is one of the highest in the nation. I think we're second only to Nevada. It's went up in July to 12% from 11.8%. And of course, the U.S. average is still above 9%. So how do we meet these challenges? I mean, a lot of us have been saying that the clean tech industry can help pull us out of this recession. And maybe it can, but it's not doing it yet. So how do we meet the challenges? Well, I think a lot of folks would say, and I would tend to agree, that we need to change the business as usual, or as many would say, the business be damned attitude in Sacramento and Washington. The weatherization fiasco in California is a perfect example. We've just got to find ways to cut through some of the political inertia to make things happen. We have to, as CleanTech OC tries to do, we really have to try to aggressively push partnerships between the public sector and the private sector and the universities. That's what the Fountain Valley Hydrogen Fuel Station was all about. It was those different sectors working together to make something happen. But I also think we need to change our focus a little bit. There was a very interesting article, essay recently in Foreign Affairs by energy experts David Victor and Kasia Janicek, and they observed that our system of clean energy subsidization is rigged to favor the deployment of only the least risky and most mature clean energy technologies. And instead, they urge, we must invest in innovative technologies that have a better chance of competing on even footing with conventional energy sources. And really, that's the bottom line, is for the clean tech industry and the renewable energy industry to really be taken seriously, we've got to get it to the point where it really can compete with the traditional fuels. And we're nowhere near that yet, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get there. And I think we need to ask some very hard questions about whether we are on the right path to get us there. And perhaps most important, and you're going to hear a lot more about this from our lunch speaker, we have not yet to develop or even really try to develop a serious, effective, long-term energy policy in this country. We remain mired in politics and emotion. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, and the clean technology revolution certainly can and should play a vital role in our long-term energy solutions, but they are not the entire solution. As Taylor said a moment ago, we created CleanTech OC as a vehicle to take up some of these challenges, to educate the public, the business sector, and the public sector on matters relating to energy policy, renewable energy, and clean technology, to bring these different sectors together to try to create synergies and solve some of these intractable problems. Most specifically, to simply grow the clean tech industry in Orange County, to create jobs and economic growth in the local clean tech industry by working together, working smart, and finding daring, new, creative approaches to these problems. The good news is that we have some of the smartest minds in the world working on these problems, and many of them are right here in Orange County. We are truly, truly at the cutting edge of the clean tech revolution here in Orange County, and hopefully the program today is going to demonstrate that better than I've done here from the podium this morning. So without any further ado or delay on my part, I'd like to welcome up our first real speaker of the day, and it is my pleasure to bring Stephen Johnson, former EPA administrator, up here to share some of his thoughts with you. Thanks.
Well, thanks very much, Greg, and it is a pleasure to be here. We talk about life's experiences. I was sharing with some of my colleagues, Hank Havoc and Alan and others, where I was on 9/11 and 9/12 and the rest. And it was a difficult time, obviously, for our nation, and it was a difficult time for those of us that were in the leadership positions as well. But as we look at those, all those kinds of events begin to shape our perspectives, whether it's 9/11 or spending nearly 3 decades at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So I must admit, I am still in recovery. So please bear with me. I also am a small business owner, and I'm also an investor, and I'm also a member of 2 boards of 2 CleanTech OC companies here, M2 Renewables as well as Flex Energy. And so I'm not going to be so bashful about talking about them as part of my discussion. But one of those other things that begins to frame who we are is I'm in that wonderful stage, my wife and I are in that wonderful stage of having grandchildren. So Saturday night we'd gotten home from some trips, some business trips. So Saturday night, one of our 5 grandchildren, our 4-year-old grandson Caden, called and said, "Papa, I need a sleepover." Okay, well, the last thing I really wanted to do was have a sleepover after being traveling. But he came over, and so that evening, he went with me on my 2-mile walk, highly recommended by my primary care physician. So as we're walking along, I'm trying to make this a learning experience. By the way, our grandkids love Disney and love Discovery. There are 2 channels that our daughters both allow them to watch most of the time. But so nonetheless, trying to make this a learning experience. And so he said, well, are you going to be able to play ball with me tomorrow? I said, well, I'm going to have to get on a plane. I'm going to California. What are you going to do in California? I said, well, I'm going to do some work for Flex Energy, and I'm going to be speaking at the CleanTech OC conference. Well, Papa, what's CleanTech OC? Are they dirty? And I said, no. I said, no, Caden, they're not dirty. It's clean. It means it's healthy. It's good for you. Okay. He said, well, you said that, like, it's near Disneyland. I said, yeah. Can I come? I said, well, okay, you have to go to school. And he said, well, is CleanTech OC, is it a character? Is it on TV? And I said, well, there are some characters that are part of CleanTech OC, but no, it's not such a program. Now, maybe we've got an idea here, so either Discovery Channel or Disney, you run with it. But it is a pleasure to be here, and it does, after those years of experience then as well as now, begin to shape some thoughts. So really, in the few minutes that I have with you this morning, really want to present, I'll say, some more hopefully thought-provoking ideas. And for those of you who have heard some of these ideas before, just let me remind you that repetition is the best form of teaching. So, and some of you need repetition. Even those of you with hair color, my hair color, or those that don't even have it. But nonetheless, before I move on, as you can see from my overhead slide, which it's not there, we are. As you can see, it shows the title of Achieving the Global Imperative for Clean, Economically Sustainable Technologies and Services. That clean tech is at the tipping point. I believe that it is at the tipping point. As was discussed by Gary just a few minutes ago, we see signs and symptoms of that. But I also believe that we must achieve, and I believe that it's not only here in the United States, but it really is a global imperative for clean, economically sustainable. And it's not just technologies, but it's also services as well. So as I want to examine this with you, let me turn to the next slide. And as you look at it, how do you frame something about the tipping point? Obviously there's many ways to look at it. I look at it as a series of weights. Again, you'll hear a theme here since my primary care physician just went through what was referred to as a 60,000-mile checkup. So weight is one of the issues. So in balancing and not hitting a tipping point for clean tech, or for that matter, just the success of a business, success of a family, success of a community, there are weights, there are issues that are bearing down upon us. Whether it is the needed research, whether it's the innovation, whether it's energy independence and as part of that national security, whether it is health, human health effects or environmental, all of these, economic prosperity, looking at it from a household perspective or from a business perspective of return on investment or return to your shareholders or valuation, all of those pieces are carefully balanced on the fulcrum of needing to achieve a sustainable clean tech community as well as goods and services. This slide is really meant as a very simple reminder for all of us in the room that there are very, very long list of competing weights that can easily tip the scale for us to be successful. And so let's be mindful of that. We don't have to quote the statistics very long and hard. The U.S. Energy Information Agency for 2009 says that we as a nation consume 94.6 quadrillion BTUs of energy. 94.6 quadrillion BTUs of energy. Or if you want to look at water consumption, we take out of our water, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, in 2005, by the way, which is the latest statistics, 400 billion gallons of water. So what are we going to do? Increase population. China's at 1.3 billion people. Unemployment, 9%. We can go through statistics. We clearly have a lot of weights that are pushing us and can tip us in one direction or another. Oh, by the way, for those of you who might be concerned, yes, I do have a badge and credentials, but it does have stamped retired on it. So you don't have to worry about a raid from me today. Next slide, please. Well, one of the things I like to do is I like to refer to, being a scientist by training, what does the scientific community, the journals, the scientific literature say about clean tech? New York Times. That's a joke. Not a joke what it said on August the 18th. Headline, number of green jobs fails to live up to promises. And you see some quotes here. Next slide. Well, Brookings had a little bit different take. It says, in fact, that the clean economy employs some 2.7 million workers. And that we need to ensure adequate finance, and we need to drive innovation by investing. And newer clean tech segments produced explosive job gains, and the clean economy outperformed the nation during the recession. Next slide. So what does the Wall Street Journal have to say? One of my favorite scientific journals. It is where the action is. And in fact, here in OC is a great example of exactly what the Wall Street Journal is talking about. A new industry hub are drawing entrepreneurs and investors and offering startups support and safety in this turbulent economy. Well, as I have looked at virtually every industry, of course, EPA reaches into everyone's some would say pockets, but across the entire economy, U.S., and often around the world. I've seen two challenges that, whether you're a small business, large business, investor, entrepreneur, and so I'd like to briefly hit these two. So next slide, please. One of them I refer to as vision impairment. It's a strategic vision impairment. And what I mean by that, what is your vision for your technology or your goods or service? Are you of the belief that it follows the second law of thermodynamics? Now, for you physicists or non-physicists in the room, what that means is over time, kind of things just sort of balance out over time. You don't have to influence it, it just balances out. If that's the way you're running your clean tech, good service, your business, or investing, you are mistakenly wrong, and unfortunately I have seen it time and time again. Balancing benefits, trying to not tip, does not follow the second law of thermodynamics. Second, what I've also seen, I don't know if we have any physicians who happen to be in the eye care business, but technology or service, what I would say is a myopia. That is, you can see things up close, but distance is a little bit blurred. And we in the VC world, in the startup world, and even in Fortune 500, 100, international corporations become so focused on the short-term return on investment, the short-term gain, that as we look out to the future, whether it's innovative technology or whether it is just maintaining our current product line, it gets really blurred. And so we begin to get this myopic vision, again, which is unhealthy and needs to be corrected. Third, Pachira aquatica. We all want one of these in our backyard. That is a money tree, also called a money plant. Now, how many of you in this room would like to have a money tree planted in your also forget about that we are in a larger backyard of clean tech, and that we need to make sure that we are supporting each other and making sure that as money trees are planted, that those money trees help our industry in general. My last observation, and I would say concern, is are you in your business, are you a kiosk or are you a paladin? A kiosk is, you know what those are, you know, those friendly little stations, typically it's sort of a garden station, and you hand out information. It's good, that's good. Well, what's a paladin? Well, if you look it up, you'll find that it is a forceful champion for a cause. So for you, wherever you sit, in whatever business, here in this room today, are you really acting more as a kiosk? Or are you really an aggressive champion for the cause of clean tech and for your particular business? I've seen it time and time again where we think, whether a startup or a Fortune 100 company, that, well, that's the responsibility of marketing. No, it's everyone's responsibility to be the champion, not just an information provider. Well, next slide. The second big thing, the challenge that I have seen is that, and I see it time and time again, the government is at fault, academia is at fault, and businesses is at fault. And that is, we find ourselves creating impossible measures of success. we find ourselves creating impossible measures of success. So we say, well, obviously we don't want any cost to business. We don't want, not in my backyard avoided. We don't want to do this. We want zero risk. We want it not only to not cost anything, we want it to make money. We want to do all these things. And oh, by the way, that is the definition of success if you're able to check that entire list off for your technology, for your goods or service. Obviously, we're going to fail. And if you noticed in one of my earlier slides, when Jones was talking about comments that he made about the clean tech or green revolution, he said it was never meant to solve the economic problems of our nation or the globe. And so, as said, even the government fails to create the appropriate measures of success. So what do we do with this? Next slide. Well, we not only need to define realistic measures and really interdisciplinary. And so what I mean by that is when we go back to that scale, yes, I'm Environmental Protection Agency, but I also had to balance economic, also had to balance research and development, both exploratory, breakthrough, also had to balance energy security, national security, health, all of those. And so as to be a successful clean tech OC company today, you have to not only define these interdisciplinary measures of success, but you have to deliver. You have to deliver. Failure, your business will fail, and OC clean tech will fail. What else? Well, we've talked a little bit about money. Guess what? Catalysts are needed. Financial infusement is needed to get things going. Whether it is a well-established company that's looking for that new breakthrough technology, that company has to invest money in that breakthrough technology. If you're a startup, you need venture capital. You need those government grants. Otherwise, that's not going to happen. But once that has been developed, then we need to help get into commercialization, but then we shouldn't require catalysts. If we do, then we're not going to be sustainable. Well, what else? Well, we need to enact a 21st century regulatory system. I could go on and on about the Clean Air Act, but let me just say that it is time as a nation that we take a close look at our entire regulatory system. And it doesn't matter whether it is EPA or the SEC, or you can pick your favorite federal or state regulatory agency. Many of these laws are very old, they're outdated, and ill-equipped to handle where we're at today. And so it's time to change. We need a regulatory system in place, but it needs to be more efficient and effective. But we also, as part of that, not only live in the United States, but we obviously, and we're reminded of it day in and day out, we're in a global community. Have you been following Greece? Have you been following the EU? Have you been following Dow Jones? Have you been following the stock market here in the US? We talk about elasticity in the stock market, and we're seeing now what's happening in some remote place in Greece having a tremendous effect on the United States. And so we have to make sure, as clean tech entrepreneurs, as businesses, that we are working toward a 21st century international agreement. They have to be transparent, they have to be measurable, they have to be verifiable, and we need to work together to make that happen. And last but not least, we have to be paladins. The days of just being a kiosk and providing information on now electronically on a tweet or on a blog or on your internet are over. If you are not a paladin, if you are not a champion for clean tech and clean tech OC, you will fail. You will fail. And so, next slide. So, because couple of the companies that I'm on the board, I don't want to fail. I'm not bashful at all about being a paladin for flex energy. Now, you're going to hear Joe Perry, the CEO, a little bit later, but it is very exciting. Next slide. I'm also a paladin for into renewables, and you'll hear Gerhardt a little bit later on a panel, and also a number of my very close friends who I work with, Sale Capital Partners. In fact, it was Saturday night, the phone rang. I'd just been playing ball with my 4-year-old grandson. We have this beach ball, so I'm in our family room, and there are a lot of breakable things, and so we are playing beach volleyball in our family room, to the dismay of my wife and daughter and son-in-law, but nonetheless, Caden and I are having a good time. Phone rings. It's Hank Havoc, Sale Capital Partners. Hank, can I call you right back? As he's hearing, Papa, hit the ball, hit the ball. So I took care of Caden and talked to Hank, and all the world was good, again, both with Sale as with our 4-year-old grandson. But that brings me to the last slide. CleanTech OC. CleanTech is at a tipping point, and CleanTech OC, all of you in this room and others that should be in this room are and need to even be more aggressive paladins for going green to make green. Be like our 4-year-old grandson. Let's hit the ball out of the park. Thanks very much.